My husband's Vegas secret. Sharing a room with another woman? I thought my marriage was solid. My husband and I had been together for over a decade, and never once did I doubt his loyalty. He's not the type to mess around. His first marriage ended because of cheating, and that's never been in his character. But last month, he went to Las Vegas for a national bowling tournament. I couldn't join because of work and the kids. He went with his mom and her bowling friends, and while it was disappointing not to go, I knew he'd have a great time. One evening during his trip, we FaceTimed. He looked tired, joking about taking a nap. I casually asked if he had the hotel room to himself. His answer? Oh no, I'm sharing with a woman from the bowling league. The shock must have been clear on my face because he quickly explained there was a mix-up with the rooms, and his mom suggested he room with this woman instead. That night, I barely slept. I wanted to believe he was telling the truth, but my mind raced with possibilities. He brushed off my concerns, saying he didn't think it was a big deal. When he got back, I confronted him. Why didn't he tell me earlier? Why wasn't I informed before I found out on a random call? His responses were mixed. First, he didn't think I'd be upset, and then he didn't want to worry me. But if he knew I'd be upset, why wasn't he open about it from the start? As the weeks passed, more cracks began to show. He forgot my birthday, barely made an effort, and somehow managed to make his Vegas trip sound like a bigger deal than the special moments we should have shared as a couple. Now I'm left wondering, was this just an innocent mix-up, or was there more happening in that hotel room than he let on? Update 2: a message from Vegas changes everything days past, but I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling gnawing at me. My husband and I continued our routine, yet something was different. He seemed preoccupied, and every time I brought up the trip, he'd brush it off, claiming there was nothing to worry about. But I wasn't convinced. One morning, as I was scrolling through social media, I noticed a message request. It was from a woman named Diane, someone I didn't know but recognized from a few tagged photos with his mom's bowling team. I hesitated, then clicked to read it. Diane's message was friendly, but struck an unexpected nerve. Hi there. I thought you should know, your husband was so nice during the Vegas trip. I hope he had fun rooming with Lauren. Lauren. The name immediately hit me like a cold splash of water. This was the first time I'd heard it. Diane kept messaging, adding more seemingly innocent details, but to me, each word felt like a new cut, feeding my suspicions. That night, I brought it up with him. I told him about Diane's message, dropping Lauren's name, hoping to see a reaction. His face went blank. Why would Diane message you? He muttered, visibly uncomfortable. His eyes darted, and he avoided my gaze. When I pressed him further, his tone turned defensive. It's not a big deal. Diane's just stirring things up. There was nothing between Lauren and me. But it wasn't the response I needed to calm my nerves. Instead of explaining or reassuring, he shut down, leaving me with even more questions. I felt like I was losing my grip on what was real and what wasn't. Late that night, I lay in bed, unable to sleep. My mind kept replaying everything he said, all the odd details he tried to brush under the rug. I finally decided to reach out to Diane, hoping she'd give me more insight into the trip. Update 3: the truth about Lauren. Vegas Secrets finally revealed Diane responded the next day with even more unexpected details. Oh, Lauren? She and your husband were around each other quite a bit. I didn't think anything of it, but now that you ask, yeah, they seem to get along well. They were always laughing, and she even cheered him on during the matches. Maybe they've been friends for a while. This hit me like a brick. My husband hadn't mentioned anything about Lauren before the trip, nor about her being so invested in his tournament games. As the details started to pile up, the image I had of my husband and our life together began to feel more like a fragile house of cards. But I wasn't ready to make accusations without more information. I needed to dig deeper to understand why he hadn't told me about Lauren or Diane's perspective. I tried to act normal, not letting on that I was still actively looking for answers. That evening, I called his mom casually, bringing up the trip. I subtly mentioned Diane's message, hoping she'd fill in the gaps. But my mother-in-law's reaction was guarded. She stumbled over her words, brushing off my questions, eventually saying, "Oh, honey, they just bowled and relaxed. You have nothing to worry about." It sounded rehearsed, almost too dismissive. Something didn't feel right. In the days that followed, I kept piecing things together. Eventually, I decided to call Lauren herself, though I wasn't sure how she'd react. To my surprise, she was pleasant, even open. "Yes, I shared the room with your husband. But it wasn't like that. We're just friends." She tried to assure me, saying they had separate beds and barely spent time alone in the room. But even if her words were sincere, they didn't ease my mind. I felt betrayed, not by a grand affair but by the lies, the half-truths, and the feeling of being shut out. That night, I confronted him again, for the last time. Tell me everything or I walk. And that's when the real story started to come out. He admitted to knowing Lauren beforehand, from bowling tournaments they'd both attended in the past. He said he hadn't mentioned it because he didn't think it mattered and didn't want me to overthink things. I felt myself growing angrier with each word, the trust between us hanging by a thread. In the weeks that followed, we tried to repair the cracks, going to counseling and attempting to rebuild the foundation of our marriage. But the wound of deception left a scar that wouldn't fade. I could never look at him the same way again, haunted by the shadows of Vegas, of the woman I never knew existed, and of the life I thought we shared.